James Bello, the boxing source, here with another video, and this one here is to talk about the announcement of the IBF middleweight championship fight that will take place on October 5th in Madison Square Garden. It will be Gennady Golovkin, former middleweight champion of the world, going up against Sergiy Derevyanchenko, who has competed for this IBF middleweight championship before, losing to Daniel Jacobs last year, but he was able to get back into the mix for that IBF middleweight title by getting that mandatory position, defeating Jack Colquet earlier this year, and so he was put into the position to compete for the IBF middleweight championship once again. And initially they were trying to work out a deal to have him fighting Canelo Alvarez, who did hold the IBF middleweight championship, but those negotiations fell apart, according to the team of Golden Boy Promotions, and the IBF ended up stripping Canelo Alvarez of that middleweight championship, and so now that title is vacant, and Sergiy Derevyanchenko and Gennady Golovkin will be fighting for that IBF championship at Madison Square Garden. It is interesting that this fight is going to take place because we had an instance where Sergiy Derevyanchenko was slated to fight Gennady Golovkin for that same IBF middleweight championship, and that was supposed to take place last year, while Gennady Golovkin didn't have an opponent in May of last year, and because of the whole thing with the Canelo ordeal, but the IBF had called the mandatory around that particular time, and Gennady Golovkin opted to face veins Martirosyan, and so that is why you had Gennady Golovkin be stripped of that IBF title at that particular time. And so then you had Sergiy Derevyanchenko fight Daniel Jacobs for that IBF title. He lost to Daniel Jacobs. Daniel Jacobs lost to Canelo Alvarez. Canelo Alvarez gets stripped of that IBF title, and here we go once again with Sergiy Derevyanchenko having another shot at that IBF middleweight title, this time against Gennady Golovkin at Madison Square Garden on October 5th. Now, this will be an interesting battle between Gennady Golovkin and Sergiy Derevyanchenko. Given that Gennady Golovkin is, kind of like up there in age, and some people are saying that he may be on the downside of his professional career. And with Derevyanchenko getting this second opportunity for the IBF middleweight championship, that kind of like says that, hey, you're getting this second chance within 12 months of the IBF title. And if you can't come through here, then it may be a good little time before you'll be able to have an opportunity for a world title there in the middleweight division. But this kind of like shapes up what would happen, at middleweight. You have this here for that IBF middleweight championship. You still have to see what happens with Canelo Alvarez if any fight is going to become official. I had a video earlier in reference to him possibly fighting Sergey Kovalev for the WBO light heavyweight title if Kovalev defeats Anthony Yard this Saturday over in Russia. And you still have the WBO champion Demetrius Andrade that's out there that is looking for someone to fight so that he could defend that WBO championship. But here with Gennady Golovkin against Sergiy Derevyanchenko, this is an interesting bout to say the least, as we possibly could have saw this fight last year, but Golovkin opted not to fight him at that particular time and ended up getting stripped of the IBF title because of that. So now we get to see if Gennady Golovkin will be able to step forward and take on Sergiy Derevyanchenko and defeat Sergiy Derevyanchenko in hopes of fighting Canelo Alvarez one more time, with him having a title with him. But the way that things happen before the second fight between Canelo Alvarez and Gennady Golovkin and the aftermath of that, I still don't see how those guys will fight each other for a third time, no matter what the people in the zone and John Skipper and all of those other people say there over on that side. But I mean, you do have Eddie Hearn that is supposedly working with Gennady Golovkin here, starting with this fight. So maybe that could lead to other big matchups there in the middleweight division in the future if Gennady Golovkin is able to defeat Sergiy Derevyanchenko. So there's a good little bit on the line with this fight that's coming up on October 5th at Madison Square Garden. So that's pretty much what we have in reference to this topic of Gennady Golovkin, Sergiy Derevyanchenko, IBF Middleweight Championship on the line, October 5th at Madison Square Garden. Be sure to subscribe to the Boxing Source on YouTube and catch the Boxing Source radio show Sunday 7:30 live on Blog Talk Radio, or catch it on a podcast through iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or whatever your favorite podcast app is. And on that note, folks, I'm out. Peace.